Alright, this is a video that I have wanted to make for a super long time, and it strays away from my typical, I guess, ranking from worst to best or ranking weapons, stuff like that. We're gonna revisit some of the best villains in Fortnite history. We have had countless of absolutely notorious villains that have absolutely wreaked havoc on the Fortnite map, and we're gonna look at some of those today. But what makes a good villain, right? I feel like it's a couple of things. One, kind of their impact on the map. Do they actually impact the Fortnite gameplay, right? As well as this, obviously, they have to have a pretty prominent presence in the storyline. They have to be a main villain. And of course, to be a villain, you truthfully have to be evil. And I think we're going to see that with a couple of the villains on this list. With all that being said, guys, if you go on to enjoy this video, be sure to leave it a like, use code TYFRYZ in the Fortnite item shop, and let me know down below if you'd like to see me revisit some of the worst villains of all time. Let's just get right into this. And the first villain I'm going to have on this list was actually the first villain in Fortnite history. That's the Visitor. Now, of course, we know a whole lot more about the Visitor than we did when he arrived in Season 4. When he arrived, it was a total mystery. Nobody had any idea what was going on. And of course, he was actually the secret skin of that season. He was just a completely ominous figure, right? Nobody had any idea what was going on. Again, now we know he's a member of the 7. We know some of the other 7, and I guess we just know what the 7 is in general. He obviously landed on the Fortnite island right in that meteor, in that crater, which flattened Dusty Depot. He then escaped from that, like, hub, and he went into the location, which was the villain lair at the time. And as I'm sure all of you guys know, he basically went to modify this giant rocket, which the Fortnite lore says was just a movie prop, and he actually made it into a working rocket, and then launched the rocket. Of course, the very first live event was because of the Visitor. And this rocket obviously tore up reality, created all these rifts. You saw he tried to destroy Tilted Towers and a bunch of other locations with that laser. The Visitor was truthfully a ruthless villain and an absolutely perfect first villain to set up the Fortnite storyline. He is an absolutely notorious Fortnite villain in the entire lore, and no surprise that he's going to be here, in my opinion. But a pick that might surprise you, and honestly, I don't know if you could consider it a villain. It's not even a person, it's a thing. It's the Cube. Of course, I'm referring to Kevin the Cube. And let me just say something here. I mean, this is prime Fortnite nostalgia here. Like, I'm just smiling talking about it because this was such an amazing time to be a fan of not only Fortnite, but also the lore that was growing in the game. The Cube goes longer than just Chapter 1. I mean, of course, it was added in Chapter 1. I believe it was around that Season 5, 6 area, where the Cube was, like, basically rolling around the map, leaving all these ruins and all these, like, zero gravity zones, if you guys remember. He was rolling through POIs. Of course, we know it as Tilted Towers. He ran through, I believe it was the, like, camping store, the fish store, kind of. But he eventually would go into the lake and just kind of disappeared. But obviously, we know that that was not the end of the Cube's story. He actually came back in Chapter 2, and it was essentially revealed that, you're not going to believe this, but the Cube was a sentient being with several other cubes that were following the destruction, which obviously set up another villain that we will end up talking about in this video. I mean, if you think about it, the Cube was like really what set up the entire decimation of the Fortnite map. But that's what makes it such a good villain, right? It is not even a human. It does not have any words or dialogues or eyes or anything, and you still feel this like kind of attachment to the Cube. And not only did you like care about what happened to the Cube, I know for myself, like I was actually upset when the Cube melted into Loot Lake, right? But the Cube also had massive impacts on gameplay. I said with the zero gravity bubbles, right? I mean, I remember a tournament was going on at the time, and this live kind of mini live event actually happened, and players were going flying up and down. I remember the casters were like, dude, what is going on? Buildings were being destroyed. If you guys remember, you could shoot the Cube and it would electrocute the players that were near it. I mean, that is just scraping the surface of the impacts that the Cube had on the actual Fortnite map and how you played the game. For all these reasons, I think the Cube is an absolute lock to be on here. Next, let's talk about a really interesting one that some of you guys may not have even known existed. It's actually Jeno. So if you don't really know anything about Jeno, well, I wouldn't really blame you because we only have seen it a couple of times, maybe once or twice in the entire history of the game. But Jeno is mentioned countless times, specifically by the Foundation a lot. But Jeno is essentially just this, like, I don't know how to explain it, this big overarching villain that essentially controls all the bad things that happen on the Fortnite map. Jeno is essentially the most powerful being in the entire Fortnite universe. And I mentioned earlier, like the Foundation and even the Seven have made it their goal to essentially totally stop Jeno from whatever he's planning to basically destroy the Fortnite island. He essentially runs the Imagined Order, and the reason why I was kind of hesitant to put Jeno on here is because we never really see him. I mean, I think we see him once or twice, and so it's hard for players to even know who Jeno is. If you don't pay attention to any of the Fortnite storyline stuff and you just play the game, you would have no idea who this is. But obviously, he is behind all the bad actions that have ever really happened in Fortnite. He is really just the sentient being behind everything, and so for that reason, Jeno is gonna make it onto this list. I also think part of what makes him like a really cool character is we don't know a lot, right? There's curiosity. It leaves you to thinking, what is Jeno up to now? Why do they want to stop him so bad? Jeno is a very, very ominous character, that's for sure. But a character that is certainly not ominous, one of the largest figures in the entire Fortnite universe, it's Galactus. I mean, he's literally known as the Devourer of Worlds. It doesn't really get much more villain-like than that, right? And I really like the fact that he's already an established villain, right? Fortnite didn't have to try and build up this lore and build up this storyline to kind of force a villain upon us. Galactus has been known as like a major villain in the entire Marvel Comics universe for decades, right? So as soon as he was seen in Chapter 2, Season 4, you knew this guy meant absolute business, right? You knew not to mess with Galactus. And I really like how they introduced Galactus right at the very end of the trailer where it like zooms in like light years and it's Galactus super, super far away. And at the beginning of the season, you can faintly see him in the corner of the sky. And then as the season got closer and closer to ending, Galactus got closer to the Fortnite island and you're like, oh my God, we're going to have a huge fight on our hands. And his plan was literally what he does in the Marvel Comics, literally to swallow the entire Fortnite universe. And of course, he was the main reason why we got one of the best live events in Fortnite history. Of course, that was the fight to take down Galactus. I mean, how cool is that, right? If you really think about it, we were Fortnite players and Fortnite characters teaming up with Iron Man to take down Galactus in Fortnite Battle Royale. Guys, how insane was that? What a crazy villain, right? And he put up a good fight, I'll be honest with you guys. And even if you've been playing Chapter 5, Season 4, you'll know Galactus's head is like basically destroyed. And it's like a little Easter egg the developers threw in to this Marvel season as kind of an homage to the old Marvel season, Chapter 2, Season 4, where obviously we took him down and defeated him. It's like, cool. He's like basically dead on the side of the map. And look, I know earlier in the video, I said that the Visitor is probably the most notorious Fortnite villain of all time. But now that I think about it, Midas might take that spot. This is without a shadow of a doubt the most popular Fortnite villain of all time, and I would actually go as far as to say he may be the most popular character in the entire Fortnite storyline. I would say it's basically between Midas and Jonesy, really. I mean, look, when you probably read the title of this video, the best Fortnite villains, Midas was probably the first one to come to your mind. And again, what I think made Midas such a cool character was that, one, of course, you could play as him in the Battle Pass, which you can't say about all the people on this list. But of course, Midas also had the golden touch, so he basically affected your game, right? If you played as Midas, your AR skin would turn gold. Everything you touched would turn to gold. Not to mention his actions that he's taken to try and destroy Fortnite. I mean, if you played Chapter 2, Season 2, even if you didn't play that season, you know about henchmen, right? Well, who are the henchmen serving for? They're serving for Midas. Obviously, we all know the device event, right? Well, who created the device? It was Midas. He was essentially trying to be able to control the storm. But Midas has a deeper, more like emotional level to it, right? We talked about Jeno, right? He's this like crazy super villain that we've never seen before, this ominous entity, right? Galactus, the Devourer of Worlds, can eat single planets. But Midas just seemed like another human being, right? And even if you think about it just on like a basic human level, right? The device was his life work. We know that. He was working on the device forever and it entirely backfired and basically made it so his life work was for nothing. It's almost like a little bit sad. You start to feel bad for the main villain of the game, right? And then of course he had like a little cameo in the intro of the Chapter 2 Season 3 cinematic where he was basically washed out at sea by himself and the shark comes up to him. And again, even if you guys remember the device event when it all went wrong and it totally collapsed and went crazy, we all know that the storm was basically an entire wall of water for a couple days. Again, another villain actually affecting the in-game gameplay. Whether you cared about the Fortnite storyline or not, you didn't have a choice but to pay attention to Midas because he was that strong. This is just a chef's kiss, right? This is how you do a villain correctly in a video game. Next, I got a little bit of an underrated pick. I bet some of you guys probably forgot about this guy. It's actually the Devourer. I remember, like, I would literally come home from school and look up updates on the giant monster on the Fortnite map. Like, it was actually that big of a deal. And yes, I was a total nerd, right? But I was into it. I loved it. And the Devourer was literally what I just said. It was a giant monster that was hidden under polar peaks, and his eye was slowly revealed over time as the ice melted. And it wasn't just something that took a couple weeks to happen, right? The anticipation had been building over seasons of Fortnite. That's months at a time. Players started to notice, obviously, the eye started blinking, and it's like, oh my god, there is actually something alive that is hiding underneath Polar Peak. And as the story goes, a volcano erupted, and I want to say that was chapter 1 season 8, which hit Polar Peak. The ice obviously all melted, and the Devourer was freed, and he went into the ocean, as we all know, which is where it would remain until, in my opinion, the best live event in Fortnite history, the final showdown, as you guys know it, the monster versus mech event. It was this crazy time, right? This monster that only we had just seen one eye of slowly rose out of the water with Polar Peak on its back. My nerves were like out of this world when I was watching this live event. Everyone was wondering, what is the monster going to look like? And here comes this crazy, ugly, huge monster that was ready to destroy the entire map. And he definitely wreaked havoc on the map. He definitely did that. But as we know, he was obviously taken down. He lost to the mech in the fight, and the mech starts to emote on him. The only reason why I kind of think of the Devourer of less of a villain is because he was really a one-off villain, right? I mean, once he got destroyed, there was no coming back. He was dead. I mean, obviously his skull was on the Fortnite map for, I believe, Season X at that time. And we haven't heard about the Devourer in 4 or 5 years. He's simply just now a part of Fortnite history. But next, let's talk about Dr. Sloan, because to me, it's very obvious that Epic Games have continuously, over different chapters of Fortnite, tens of seasons, have pushed Dr. Sloan to be the main villain of Fortnite. It's almost like Midas kind of passed the baton over to Dr. Sloan, right? And what makes Dr. Sloan so powerful is she essentially is the commander of the Imagined Order. She takes orders directly from Jeno. We know that as a fact. That is true. And for multiple seasons at a time, she was simply just the main antagonist of Fortnite. And what I think makes Dr. Sloan such a cool villain is we saw this really cool villain arc almost, like how she basically kind of appeared as like a good character, like a friend almost, and then her demeanor ended up changing to that of a villain when she saw all the power that she could have. And once she realized all the power that was in her control, it changed everything. We obviously know that she left the player base basically for dead on the alien mothership from chapter 2-7, and she orchestrated a war against the Seven. Originally, we had thought that Sloan had the island's best interests in mind, but that was a lie. That was not the case. Also, side note, one good thing about Sloan is she has brought some incredibly overpowered weapons to the Fortnite island. To be honest with you, like, I'm kind of indifferent about Sloan. Like, I understand the impact that she had on the map and the island, the game as a whole. To me, I still think Midas is a better main antagonist, but Sloan gets the job done. And for the final villain on this list, I'm gonna go with the Cube Queen, right? Not to be mistaken with the Herald. I know they look a lot alike, but honestly, I absolutely despise the Herald simply because of the Fracture live event. If I make a video on the worst villains, you can bet your ass the Herald will be on there. But in terms of like pure danger that a villain can provide to the Fortnite island, the Cube Queen might be the best. And by best, I essentially mean the strongest, right? I mean, she's literally known as the ruler of the last reality, right? It doesn't get more dangerous than that. She literally commands every single sentient cube, which I can't even believe I'm saying that when I'm talking about Fortnite, but she literally controls all the monsters. Like, she has that entire army of monsters ready by her side. Obviously, I'm referring to the chapter 2 finale, right? And if you really think about it, the Cube Queen has probably gotten the closest to actually destroying the Fortnite island out of any of the game's villains. I'm sure you'll be watching gameplay of it on the screen right now. The Cube Queen in the chapter 2 finale obviously opened up that massive hole in the sky, and all the alien ships came out, and we had to fight all of them. And then at the very end, obviously we defeated them. We defeated the Cube Queen, and then the island actually flipped over. But none of that would have happened. None of that would have been the case if the Cube Queen would have just taken down the island, which of course she was very close to doing. In terms of sheer power and strength and fear that she instilled in players, yeah, she's quite up there. she is really high up there with the best of the best. All right, guys. Well, that video was super, super fun to make. I really hope you guys enjoyed watching it. If there's any villains you think I'm missing, such as Dr. Doom from Chapter 5, Season 4, he was very close to being on this list. Let me know in the comment section below. I think I did a decent job of nailing all these storyline aspects, but it's gotten so crazy over the last 5 or 6 years. Sometimes it's hard to keep track of everything. So if I missed any important points, please do let everybody know in the comment section below. But with all that being said, I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.